Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the bonus content. I brought a friend with me.
Hey, I love that you're calling me your friend. Like, is that what we are now?
Well, remember when we were dating and your parents would
Please don't tell the story.
They
It's
wouldn't.
ridiculous.
They wouldn't let us. Well, they wouldn't introduce us as boyfriend and girlfriend when we went to family functions. I was Tryphena's special friend. So
You are my special friend.
I brought my special friend with me. So bonus content. This is where we unpack some things we didn't have time for in the sermon. And this week we had a really great conversation. We usually have a conversation after Sunday, and I'm like, hey, how was the message? Did you take a lot of notes?
Did you see the fly that tried to attack me?
Yeah. Yeah. So we always have a great conversation. And this week you had some really fascinating insights, and you love this story. So
It's one of my favorite Bible stories. I just love how Jesus holds space for this woman and then later in the day a child. So incredible.
Okay, and you used that term and it hit me and I was like, oh, she's right. So first, what do you mean by holding space?
So I think the idea of like holding space is to be physically, mentally, emotionally present for someone in a moment, and like looking at what they need in that moment, not what you need in that moment. So just like you may carve out time in your day or carve out time in your week to go for a run or have a date night or whatever, to build intentional relationship, to take care of your body, you're carving out intentional space to care for somebody in that moment.
And where did you see that in this story?
So you have this woman who's been oppressed for 12 years, right? Like she's been on the margins of society. Yeah. She's already like fought to re-empower herself in this moment, to go and touch the cloak of a rabbi. She's like, I believe it was a crime back then to even touch a rabbi. So she's done all of these things. And and Jesus is like, hold on. I know that I'm about to go heal someone. I'm going to go after a girl who's dying. But I'm going to stop and hold space for you. I'm going to stop and let your story be heard. I'm going to stop and make sure you share it. I'm not like, I'm Jesus, or not I'm Jesus, but Jesus was probably like, I'm Jesus. I know everything that's going on. I know that it was this woman. I know why she needed healing. I know her story, but he did not share her story. He stopped and made sure she shared her story. He amplified her voice in the process.
Yeah, and this you pointed out, because I didn't mention this in the sermon. We just kind of read the verse, but it's like, and she explained why. So when he asked, like, who did this, he actually left room for her to actually explain. And so we don't know. It doesn't record how long she talked for, if she, stumbled over her words and was shaking it. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, but like, imagine, like, I've heard it talked about, sorry, I just cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But like someone who has been oppressed for something beyond her like control, right? She was bleeding for 12 years. She's been on the outskirts of society. Who has stopped to hear her story? Who has stopped to want to know what's happening with her? Yeah. And so Jesus is like, hold on, like, I know you have something powerful to share that we can all actually learn from. Hopefully it creates empathy in all of us, or, lots of other character building ideologies. And he stops and he lets her share her own story and makes sure that everyone else listens and learns from her.
I love that. So Jesus holding space for this woman, why is that helpful for us today?
Oh, that's a good question. So one of my favorite Latin words, not that I know any Latin words, is imago Dei. Am I saying it right? Yeah. Imago Dei. So the idea
with all my Latin, that sounds perfect.
The idea of us being like image bearers of God. We are created in the image of God. Genesis talks about humanity being created in the image of God. I've said that like 4 times now. But this idea that I think it's twofold from what I understand of it, at least. That one, that as humans, we are created special. There's something different about us because we are representations of God. So yes, God loves our pets, but there's a different love that is on us.
Not our pets, because we don't have any, but pets in general. Yes, but humans are at next level. We're actually the image of God, yeah.
But also, then, as an image of God, as a bearer of the image of God, and I look at you, I see you as the image of God. You are a representation of God in my life. And that's not just you. Yeah. That is the people that I see at drop off for school, the people that I see at work, the people that I see at the grocery store, all of those, my children, they're all images of God. And so how am I treating them? Am I treating them in the way that I would treat God? So this woman who was bleeding for 12 years, she was a holder of the image of God. And Jesus stopped and said, hey, let's acknowledge like the divinity, like the character of God in her life. The
worth and value of this human. She didn't approach me right. She stole a miracle. And yet I'm not interrupting her. I'm not letting the crowd,
Yeah, I'm going to call her daughter because she's family.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love the idea of holding space. Okay, so then as Jesus people, what does that mean for us that Jesus held space for this woman? So much space, in fact, someone died while she shared her story and he healed her, right?
Yeah.
So
he wasn't worried about like the repercussions. He knew he was going to go heal the daughter. Yeah. But he wasn't worried about the repercussion. What does that look like for us? Yeah. I think it's unique for everybody. I think one, like, how are we treating the people God has placed in our life who are bearers of Christ, right?
The image of it, yeah.
The image of God. But also, I think what we've been reflecting on this week is who is God calling us to hold space for? And for some of us, and in some moments, I think it's so nuanced because some of us, we are called to hold space for ourselves. Maybe there's emotions that are happening in our own life or physical ramifications or whatever is happening that we need to stop and carve out space to hold space for the emotions. We need to like validate the sadness or the anger or the depression or whatever it is. Now there's a fly attacking me. I think this is only when you're talking. Like, where did this fly come from? Oh my. So how are we holding space for ourselves? Or sometimes there's other people in our lives that God's calling us to hold space for. The person who is saddened or depressed or going through something, or maybe you're holding space for someone's excitement. There's a lot of joy in someone's life and there's not a lot of joy in your life, but I can still hold space for your joy and celebrate you as a bearer of the image of God.
Yeah. And that's why I think even at Lakeside and churches all over the world don't just do rows, we do circles, right? Like we hold space. We ask each other how the week was. We, in the same way that Jesus let her explain why she had reached out, in the midst of all these circumstances. Celebrate recovery. That's a place that is holding space. Grief walk. Hold space for people to tell their story and to grieve together.
Because I think everyone's story is so different, right? Like your story is going to look different than my story because of the experiences we've had to walk through. And so this woman had a very unique experience of oppression. That if I haven't heard your story, I don't have empathy for anxiety in the same way. If you hadn't heard my story, you don't have empathy for race relations and racism in the same way. And so I think there's power and empathy that's created when we hold space for other people's stories.
Yeah. So, I think that's a good challenge, my love. So thanks for joining us on the bonus content. I hope this week you sense the Spirit of God pointing out or leading you to people that you can hold space for, to hear their story, and to see and appreciate the image of God on their life, as we are all image bearers. Love you, friends. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining my special friend. Bye, guys.